Oh, hey guys. Welcome to Better Than Fine. I'm your host, Arlene Marshall, and this podcast's focus is examining what it means to live life above zero. We examine ancient wisdom and modern science in what it means to be human, what it means to flourish and thrive, the practices that help us get there, and how to learn those in real life ways. I have a master's, or I'm working on my master's in applied positive psychology, as well as nearly a decade in the fitness and coaching industries, working on helping people in self improvement. And today's episode is about alignment. I just got back from a trip to Philadelphia where I was invited to give a talk on my thesis for my master's. And it went really well. Like the kind of well that afterward you have that out of body holy shit experience where you're not sure how you did what you just did, but damn, you hope that you get to do it again someday. Like it was that kind of good. And I don't feel bad bragging about it. I worked really hard to get there. But that's what's got me thinking about alignment. We throw this word around, and oftentimes we don't dig into what we mean when we talk about aligned action. And in this episode, I want to talk about the foundational ideas of aligned action, how to cultivate a feeling of alignment in your life, what we mean when we say any of this stuff. And I also want to invite you into the conversation. So there'll be show notes on the blog on my website, and come and talk to me about your alignment. So let's get into this concept of what it means to be aligned in yourself. I think that there are two primary ways that we can explore alignment. The first is to talk about the psychological aspect of alignment. And I think positive psychology and this positive wave of like life above zero has some foundational ideas for us to explore when it comes to alignment. And then the second avenue I want to talk about is like the esoteric circle idea of alignment. We've got this kind of woo-woo conversation uh, around alignment and aligned action. And I think there's a lot there that we can explore. And I also want to throw this out there that when I say woo-woo, sometimes people think that I'm like dig in on spiritual practice. Like, no, I am a spiritual being. I have a robust spiritual practice that just doesn't necessarily align with any formal religion. So, in my own exploration of my spiritual identity, of Eastern philosophies and traditions, I have settled on the phrase woo woo for myself because I haven't come up with anything else that rang true to me. So, when I say like something is woo woo, it's not a negative. It just is how I choose to talk about spiritual practice. So let's start with the woo woo, because I think that is an interesting place to start, because then when you get into psychology, you hear the way that Western science has started to pick up the echoes of something that these esoteric traditions have known for so long. And one of my great pleasures in working in applied science, right? Because that's what training is, that's what coaching is. It's the application of scientific rigor if you're doing it right. Oftentimes, I'll take things from Eastern traditions. I'll take things from Buddhist and yogic philosophy. I taught my clients how to meditate 8 years ago. And now all of a sudden there's this like robust scientific literature around mindfulness and how good it is for us. It's like, yeah, they knew that in India 3,000 years ago, guys. Way to catch up, West. Anyway, so I think it's interesting when you start that direction. So let's talk about woo-woo alignment. So spiritual alignment. I have my 200-hour in alignment yoga, and that's a derivative of Iyengar. And it comes from the basis of the idea that when the body is particularly well aligned in its structure, it functions well. And when your body is able to function well, you're able to live your purpose. And that can be a path to enlightenment. And I found that when I went to Thailand and I studied with Tal Suisa at Luna Alignment Yoga in Koh Phangan, Thailand. It's ridiculously beautiful and what an incredible course. But when I went and pursued that and I learned from her this concept of an aligned body being a vehicle for enlightenment, it expanded my understanding of what I had been looking for my whole adult life. Little background, I got injured playing rugby in college, not knowing that I have a chronic illness that affects my joints. So the idea of alignment for me as a trainer was always this like really practical foundational thing. And then to have it anchored in this esoteric tradition was like, oh, boof. So that's physical alignment. But physical alignment, physical resiliency and well-being can then become a vehicle for all these other things. And what I specifically want to talk about is like energetic intention, action alignment. Because when something is aligned, it feels good, right? It's like when you do something that you've known for a long time you have to do, and you resisted it for whatever reason, and then you finally did it and it felt great afterward, that's because the action was aligned. And oftentimes, if you believe in that kind of spiritual practice, when you take an aligned action, suddenly all these other dominoes start falling into place. The stuff that you've been resistant of, it's like all of a sudden you got on the luge to where you were supposed to go, and you're no longer like trudging through the snow. You're just flying to where you're supposed to be. So there's also the sense of like purpose and intention. I strongly believe in the concept of purpose, even if we think about it from like a baseline level, not even like a woo-woo, like spiritual, you're here, it's predestined. Like let that go for a second. Animals who are here, right? Like I've got 2 cats. They are just being. They're just existing, right? They're not like harping on why they're here. They just like eat and cuddle and play with yarn and be. I don't know what they think their purpose is, but I think part of their purpose is just coexist with me and whoever else comes in my world. Everything that exists in our world just exists. It's just here. And its purpose is in being. We are human beings, right? We just have self-aware consciousness. In the fact that you even exist at all, you just do. It just is. Anything you add to that on top of that is just like belief and layers on layers of belief and social conditioning and decisions that you've made. There is no inherent truth other than that, right? Or maybe not. Maybe you disagree. Please come to my comments and disagree. But when it comes to purpose, that's the layers our consciousness has the opportunity to add. One of my great friends refers to this lifetime as Earth School. But like, you're here to learn, you're here to grow, you're here to do the things that feel true to you. That's purpose. And when things feel true to you, that's alignment. That's it. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So whatever is real in any of that, in anything that you do, it's real for you. It's true for you. That's alignment in the woo-woo sense. So now we can explore from that angle alignment in the psychological sense. And I think when you start to hear the resonances between them, it's fascinating, because these esoteric traditions, these ideas about alignment and enlightenment, we're just now in the West coming to codify them in a way that can be scientifically measured. And I think it's really neat. So Ryan and Detchi's work in self-determination theory talks about 3 psychosocial needs that we have. So it's relatedness, competence, and autonomy. Now, relatedness is that you feel a sense of connection, of community, of mattering, of contribution, that people care about you and you care about them and you're working on things together, right? And there's an alignment in like the people that it feels good to be around and be with. Competence is that the things that you're trying to do, you're trying to accomplish, that you have the skills in order to do that. That you are, when presented with a task, even if it's a challenge, that you can come around to being able to perform those things. That's competence. And then autonomy is that you have a sense of control of yourself and your life, that you get a say. You can move things along in the way you want them to move. And that you're not just a slave to a system, or that you don't have any control, you don't have any effect on the things you want to see happen. And that we all, when we're aligned, when we're doing well, we are ringing the bells of relatedness, competence, and autonomy. On top of that, there's also, it's interesting because it used to be, we talked about these things as a binary. Goals were either intrinsically or extrinsically motivated. Now, new research shows that it's a sliding scale. And on one end, we have the things that are extrinsically motivated. You're doing them to please others. You're shoulding, you're all over yourself. You think that you should be doing things, and so you do them. You're trying to meet roles to please external motivations. So this is like, if you've ever had a job because you needed a paycheck and it made you hate everything about that job, that's because the job was purely being extrinsically motivated. There wasn't a sense of purpose and meaning and contribution and competence and autonomy. So like the extrinsic motivators don't ring the bells of relatedness, competence, autonomy. Sliding scale to the intrinsically motivated things. So these are the things that feel like, yes, I want to do this because it's who I am to do it. It motivates me to want to work hard to overcome challenges because it's an expression of something authentic. I'm pursuing what I want in life. It's coming from somewhere inside of me that is true. Those are your internally motivated, intrinsic efforts. And our intrinsic efforts build our sense of self, our happiness, our well-being, our flourishing. It's being true to who you are. That, I believe, the intrinsic motivation that rings the bells of relatedness, competence, and autonomy are what we mean when we say action is aligned. When we talk about alignment and feeling that sense of like connection and truth and flow, it's intrinsically motivated action. This is the moment where positive psychology and ancient tradition just weave together. And for me, that's the sweet spot. That's like my bliss, is when I find these intersectional places, because we're all talking about the same thing. And I take it as a sign that like we're all moving in the right direction. We just got to get through the rough stuff first. So then we get into this idea of like, okay, you understand what alignment is. How do you find it for yourself? Because let's be honest, a lot of us go through times that are real struggles, not just because we've suffered loss or tragedy or whatever, but because we're not sure what the answer is to the aligned action. Like, oh, well, what is aligned right now? A lot of times we just don't know. So how do you cultivate a sense of alignment? Well, I think for the real baseline for myself, when I've gone through that space that I just didn't know, it started with the question of like, well, is this thing a hell yes? Because if it's not a hell yes, it's a maybe, or it's a hell no. And I started with using this applying to dating. Like if this person isn't a hell yes, then I don't want to waste the energy on it. But it really has applied to a ton of other things in my life, that as the train got moving on like who I wanted to be when I grew up, and that's been a perennial question, that if it wasn't a hell yes, how could I move towards something that was? So that can just give you like the base skim. And some of this is also just mindfulness, right? It's being aware of what is true for you so that you can pursue the things that are helpful. So of course, I'm going to recommend meditation, but that can take a lot of forms. So below that, you can then ask yourself, well, why am I doing what I'm doing? Right? Am I doing it because it moves me toward something I truly want, something I desire? Am I doing it because I feel like I'm supposed to, or am I doing it because I have to? Right? And we've all got stuff we have to do because it keeps, the lights on. It keeps Bruce and Midnight and cat food. So it's okay if you're doing it because you have to, but tap into that choice. Like, I'm choosing to do this thing that I need to do because, right? I'm choosing to take this client that I'm not excited about because I need to pay the rent to keep the lights on for the boys. I'm choosing to stay out late with this friend because they really need me, even though I'm not going to get enough sleep tonight. Whatever. Pick the thing. But one of the ways that you help yourself through the have tos is by recognizing the choose to, right? I choose to. Where's my autonomy in this moment? Even in the have to actions, I choose to go out of my way for this person who's irritating because I believe in community. Whatever the answer is. So how can you get closer to the choice in your actions? That's going to help you develop a sense of autonomy. And over time, those choices will become more and more obvious to you of like, oh, I'm choosing to do this thing because that person expects me to. That's not aligned with me. I'm not doing this anymore. So that's one way to cultivate awareness as you move through this action. You can also seek out the times that your action is serving things that are important to you, the things that you love, and the people that matter to you. Because oftentimes our truly aligned actions, we talk about them like they're about us, but they're not about us. They're about what we can contribute. And what's interesting to this is that, we've got thousands of years of philosophy and esoteric tradition on contribution and giving and service. And Isaac Pilotensky at the University of Miami is doing work on mattering, where he's researching that, like, you feel good when you know you're important to someone else or a group of someone else's, but then you also have to have a way to contribute back to them, and that it's a reciprocal exchange. And here we are measuring the well-being impact of giving it away. It's beautiful. And honestly, another thing that you can do to seek out alignment is look for the things that truly feel good. And I don't mean like, woo, get drunk, it's fun, it feels good. Like, that's a numbing action. I'm talking about, like, yesterday I had this big day in Philadelphia, and I took my best friend out to dinner to celebrate. And it was just the two of us, which never happens anymore, between her having kids and like us both being so busy. Like, it never happens. So just the two of us away from home for a night, having dinner, laughing, sending like silly pictures to our friends. And, it wasn't about like, let's get drunk, let's be crazy because we're away from home for the night and we don't have responsibilities. It was like, let's just really enjoy good food and good time together. It was an afternoon spent with other brilliant people, sharing smart ideas and just enjoying being together without pressure to be anywhere and do stuff, or what should we be doing. We just being together, and it truly felt good. And nothing about that was about numbing or backing out. It was about leaning in and engaging from a like place of truth. So seek out those moments, and then when you get them, really savor them, enjoy it. What is it about this experience that's so good? Because then you can start making note of when they're happening more and more frequently, And you'll find that your sense of alignment increases. Your sense of like, yeah, I'm going the right way. And look, it's easy hearing this. It might be easy for you to assume like, yeah, but she's got, I don't know, her shit together, whatever assumptions you're making about me. Just know, like, none of that was true for me 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was living on the struggle bus and praying for any moment that felt aligned. And anytime I got one, I was like, there it is. Okay, that. I'm going to keep doing that. Keep going. But as you move that along, it's the luge thing again, right? You're trudging through the snow and you find a place that you can just coast for a second. And then you know, like, yeah, that's that feeling. How did I get that feeling? Let me get more of that. And you can. It can be cultivated. I intend that this podcast be full of information that helps you cultivate that. Because the point, part of being above zero, part of being better than fine, is living in that space of alignment, of finding woo-woo energetic, like, yes, the universe wants me to do this alignment, along with relatedness, competence, autonomy, and intrinsic motivation. They're the same, I think. If you disagree with me, please find me on Instagram or the comments for the show notes, and let's have a dialogue about it. I'm Darlene. This is Better Than Fine. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can go to YouTube and subscribe, or subscribe in whatever podcast distribution mechanism you are listening to my voice right now. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at darlene.coach. And if you are interested, if you think that you have something good to say along these lines of what it means to live life above zero, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And if you have a brand or a topic or you would be interested in sponsoring, please don't hesitate to reach out. This is a new adventure I'm on, and I would be overjoyed to have you. Thanks for listening.